conflict is necessary for boards to work things out. Maybe you could speak to that in some way.
Yeah, and on a very selective basis, Maria, and it's
Yes.
not. I mean, as a non-exec or as a chair, I would always say you don't want to get a reputation of somebody who generates conflict in a kind of cavalier, irresponsible, doing it for your own ego benefit type of a style. But there are the odd situations based on experience where sometimes to get the attention of the relevant people, in the kind of general context I'm thinking about, it would be non-executives to executives. And a classic is, if a company is heading into a crisis, quite often the executives deny that that's really happening because they would have to face up to the fact that it's probably them that has got the company into the crisis, and therefore, they employ a lot of mechanisms mentally to avoid admitting where they are and how they've got there. And sometimes I've found that really the only way is to really stir things up in a kind of conflict sense by being provocative. Um, I would always recommend that you try to do that unless it's in extremis. You try to avoid doing that without making it personal. Okay. That's a kind of general view about this whole kind of field of activity that I've got. You're likely to be more creative and helpful in the areas of conflict. Sometimes it's unavoidable if you can keep the personal side out of it.
That's
But
really,
sometimes it is just. I mean, if I reflect on an extremely long career, the number of times I've probably had to stimulate conflict, either between executives or non-executives. We're not talking in the thousands. We're talking, a relatively small number. And I can remember thinking about it. It was, it was quite a big judgment call for me to do that, because sometimes the situation you get into is if particularly if you're heading for a crisis, if you generate conflict to help them to recognize the crisis, is the cost benefit that in reality it's not worth it because it's actually going to make things worse. Okay?
thank you. Yeah, that's really, so, the key things I've taken from listening to you are, firstly, we're not generating conflict just to be annoying or to be hostile or to just, we're not acting out our stuff.
Yeah.
What we're doing is we're taking situations where perhaps a non executive director is having to sort of speak truth to the executives. And perhaps there's defensiveness or denial or avoidance. And it's important, if I've understood you, it's important to generate a conflict to stimulate a conversation that's based in reality.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things about it's part of the role of a non-executive, you know, they are not in a business day to day, whereas the executives are, and it's part of their remit, which is a kind of oversight remit, to see things differently. They come in and out, and they've got external experience, which is why they've been hired to be a non-executive. And I think it's incumbent on the non-execs to say, look, I see this differently to you. And based on you've been in this company for, I don't know, 5, 10, 20 years as an executive. I mean, I was an executive for a while, but now I've got 3 or 4 different non-execs, which gives me a diversity of experience, which when I look at your situation, I'm not seeing it the same as you. How about you think about it from this perspective or that perspective, which can lead to concept. One of the kind of great words in this is mindset. Executives quite often get, you know, um, a very fixed mindset about the business, the industry, the markets, what's right, what's wrong, what works, what doesn't work, right? And one of the roles of non-execs is to challenge that mindset using the facts. But what is amazing is, an executive and a non-executive can look at exactly the same set of facts and arrive at a different conclusion. And that's the kind of stuff that makes the world go round, Maria. So I think it's incumbent on them to do that. It's just if you get to a point, and I've been there a number of times, where the executives almost point blank refuse to allow themselves mentally to challenge their own mindsets. And that's not unreasonable because we've all got them. And in some cases, I've worked with people who've been CEOs for 25 years. They're not going to suddenly say, "Oh, thank you very much, Murray. Your line of questioning has helped me realize that what have been my mindsets for the last 25 years have been wrong." People just don't do that. Which is where you might need to get into the kind of the extreme of creating a conflict.